That's Andros Townsend, current Premier League player, on talkSPORT Breakfast this morning, saying that Pochettino currently is the best manager in the world. If you're going to disagree with it, you've got to have a good reason to back that up as well. What I'll say about some of the things Andros said there, with Lallana, he'd been at Southampton and he'd been very good at Southampton. And Southampton got into the Premier League before Poch had turned up. Lallana was very good before Poch arrived. I think we all knew he was an England player and a top player in the making. So I think to give Poch credit for that one is a little bit rich. On the flip side, what I'll say about this Spurs time, people talk about a lack of trophies. His brief was not to win the League Cup. It wasn't to win the FA Cup. It was to get into the top four and do as well as he can and get as close as he could to winning the title of the Champions League. So in that respect, I think he did okay. If he'd been told by Levy you've got to win the FA Cup, I think he'd have taken the FA Cup a bit more seriously. So it's unfair to judge him on trophies in his time at Spurs.
He talked about it, didn't he? He's after the big two, the Premier League and the Champions League. So I think that was his brief. And he did a lot of good things at Tottenham. There's no doubt whatsoever. He's been a fantastic manager for them. If you think in 22 years when he took over, Spurs had been in the top four only twice. On Poch's watch, 4 in 5 years. It's pretty good going.
He improved them, yeah.
Yeah, improved them. I think the only problem he had is the way it ended. 14th in the table. In the calendar year, lost 18, was it? And then there were 14 points from 12 games when they finally pulled the plug. It's just not good enough, the way it ended for him. And one thing, when you look at his time at Tottenham, which was, more often than not, fantastic. They had some great times under Poch without winning.
Played some good football.
Yeah, played some good football, and there's some terrific victories along the way. Some iconic, you'll never forget that victory against Ajax. You know what I mean? To come back and get in to the final. But during that time, only Arsenal, I don't know if you know this, 51 points, picked up fewer against the supposed top six.
Right, okay.
Spurs got 60. They lost 23. That's more than any of the big six against each other. So they lost more games. When they were playing the big boys, that's when they came up short under Poch over his period. And I was looking at some of the players he'd signed, Poch, you know. Over that 5 years, he signed 27 players. Mm-hmm. And less than half have been good players for Spurs.
Have turned out to be good players, you mean?
Well,
yeah,
the ones I put in that are Aurier, Ndombele, Wanyama, Sissoko, Sanchez. I'm giving these the credit.
Yep.
Mora, Ben Davis, Dyer, Alderweireld, Alisson. Now, you could argue a few of them shouldn't be playing for Tottenham. But you look at some of the other rubbish he's signed, there's a lot of rubbish in that list. A lot of rubbish.
You see, I look at, how close could he have got? What was the opportunity for him with the resources or lack of compared to some of the other big boys to actually winning something special? Got close in the Champions League. I think they were incredibly fortunate. I don't think there was a tactical master plan from Pochettino against Ajax. Ajax is defending for that goal that saw Mora get his hat-trick and Spurs go through was beyond belief bad, and that wasn't part of a master plan from Pochettino. But fair play, he did it. They got there. When they got there, they just didn't turn up. So he didn't seem to have a plan for the final. And if you think that it was an early penalty, and after that, listen, if there's an early setback, you've got to overcome it. So maybe mentally strong was not his asset. In terms of winning the title, 2015-16 was the time. Leicester's title, okay? And they came up short. And this is when all the other big boys imploded. Leicester were the best team in the league, deserved to win the league. They took full advantage of it. So why didn't Spurs win the title that season? Because if there was going to be a season, it's when all the big boys were missing.
Was scoring goals, wasn't he? Yeah, everything.
They were flying, and some players were flying, but they kept drawing too many games. They kept dropping points. They lost, 5 or 6 games over the course of the season. They ended that season, if you remember, with a 5-1 defeat at Newcastle. It was embarrassing. Newcastle had been relegated. And I think that was a moment where I think Spurs fans started to think, hang on a minute. And also remember the Chelsea game, the one that Danny Kelly really likes, the 2-2 draw.
Yeah, where they kicked them to bits.
Yeah, I mean,
lost the game, but kicked them. Well, they drew the game.
Yeah, they were 2 up.
Kicked them to bits.
They were 2 up and drew the game. So the last 4 games that season, they drew with West Brom at home. They drew with Chelsea having been 2 up, and they lost at home to Southampton and lost 5-1 at Newcastle. So that to me says when it got really, really crunch time, they didn't have the bottle to see it through.
Well, they went and played Chelsea, I think, the next time they played them after that game. Where I can remember, I think they beat Chelsea, didn't they? But what they would have done for winning that game when they were going for the title, and it ended up being a draw, because that's the one where they slipped up, wasn't it? And the following game, I think the following year, they actually beat Chelsea, played them and played really, really well. And he did some great things. I remember beating Manchester United. If you're considering how long it had been since Tottenham had beat Manchester United at home, it had been so long, and they beat them 3-0, didn't they? And that was 2016. So, and that was the first time since 2001 they beat them at White Hart Lane.
Yeah, that was that year.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
You can't even believe those sort of stats.
But ultimately, and it's a great result, and it's an iconic moment. It's it changes history, changes the story, and starts to change attitudes within the football club. I get that. They lost home to Leicester that season, it was a season where quickly people must have realised, hang on a minute, something's happening. Remember, we were always asking the question, can Leicester stay the course? From quite early on in the season, people were putting bets on Leicester in September, October time. That's how early they got up and running, and how quickly we realised some of the big boys wouldn't be doing it. But Spurs never really clicked into that. You never really felt convinced that they were going to win the title. And that, to me, is where Pochettino could have really cemented his reputation as Andros Townsend thinks he's the best in the world. I can't have that at all. I can't. And I'm not basing it on trophies.
No, not yet. Not when, you know what I mean? I mean, you'll have to look at Guardiola. I think he could go and do the quadruple this year.
And you look at the football they're playing, never mind the trophies, but you look at the football Man City play. Yeah. Yes, they spent a load of money, but that's down to coaching. You look at the coaching of Bielsa with the players he's got, and that's why he's respected so much. If PSG win the Champions League, then obviously that's a different story. We have to reassess everything. But if they don't win the Champions League and they finish second in Ligue 1, Pochettino's going to be out of a job.
Well, they were talking on commentary. He's under pressure.
Yeah.
If
of course he is. They're not top.
Yeah, if they would have lost that game last night at home after being 3-2 up, lost and went out, and then finished second in the league, it would have been probably.
He is still in a job probably because Leroy Sané's cross was so bad right at the end. They had a massive opportunity, and he's put the cross right into the keeper's arms.
Good manager, and if it doesn't work out for him at PSG, I think at this moment in time, I honestly believe he will get another opportunity at a huge club, a big club. So he was heavily linked one year with Manchester United. They've stuck with Ollie, and it seems to be the right decision at this moment in time. But that could soon change. We've seen that in 6 months, in 12 months, we don't know. And there'll be other managerial roles that come up, big clubs. And I think Poch's name, though, Aid, will always be in with a shout. Same as Klopp, same as obviously Guardiola. He's happy where he is at this moment. And I think Poch is in that bracket now.
Well, we'll see how he does, because if they go out in the semi-finals and they don't win League One, I think his reputation takes a hit. Let's speak to Gary, who's a Liverpool fan. Wants to talk about Poch. How you doing, Gary?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good to have you on. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I think Townsend's comments very far right in regards to being the best in the world. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a good manager. He's improved teams where he's gone. But he came third in a two-horse race. He bottled the Prem and he bottled the Champions League final against Liverpool. So how can he be regarded as the best manager in the world?
I agree with you. I mean, he's talking about... He's taking trophies out of the equation, and I understand why he's doing that, because not everybody can win trophies every season. I get that. At some point in the debate, you have to bring trophies into it, especially when you've been... Pochettino's been at Tottenham for a long time.
He could have won a trophy at Tottenham with the players he's had at Tottenham at his disposal at their peak. At their peak.
He's been gifted a 30-goal-a-season striker in the Premier League and still couldn't win a trophy. That is not
the best
in his
defence.
Favour. Yeah.
The defence was solid. It was quality.
He's lucked out with Dele Alli as well. How often do you take a kid from League One worth £5 million and he becomes a regular Premier League player?
Yeah,
and
but he has to take credit for that, though.
Of course, yeah.
Because I honestly believed he were going to send him straight back out on loan again to another club. But he kept him pre-season and played him. And so I think Poch, on his coaching side, has got to take a lot of credit for that.
I think there's a bigger story there, because I think they were going to send him out on loan. I think Poch was going to send him out on loan. and another player got injured, so they kept Dele Alli, and he was way better than anybody realised. He performed way better. It's an interesting debate about Pochettino, but the story does change if he wins the Champions League this season. This is talkSPORT.